After all these years, we finally arrived here. The conclusion to one of the greatest trilogies to ever be created on Earth. The pinnacle of mobile games. I present to you Silent Hill Mobile 3. The final and last game of the Silent Hill Mobile trilogy. Wait, what do you say? It's only been a month since the review of the first game. And I said what? The games aren't the holy masterpieces we have been looking for? Oh. Anyway, Silent Hill Mobile 3 concludes the story of the first two games that both ended with a cliffhanger, so you could basically treat all three games as just one, because they are all pretty damn short anyway. Unsurprisingly, it's a point-and-click adventure as well, but this time from a different developer with Playsoft, who even have a Twitter account instead of Game Federation Studios that did the first two games. Rest in peace, you unknown legends. Everything else remains the same or pretty similar as well. Different playable characters, some basic combat, but this time with more interesting enemies and combat, more on that later, puzzles and key items. And did I mention that we are now in some weird mansion? But before we find out if this entry finally solves my issues from the previous games, I want to mention that this video will contain some pretty big spoilers, both on the story and gameplay side. So skip to the marks on screen if you want to experience most of the game for yourself. And now intro time. The game features two playable characters, Vincent and Emily. Apart from that, both Karen and Alessa return as well. We start with Vincent, which makes sense considering that the second game ended with him. I mean, not like they often go the route that makes the most sense, but anyway. We start with Vincent, or to be exact with a flashback or something like that, of him and his abusive father. Because he ain't acting like a man. I am sure this won't end up bad. After that, Alessa talks to us, which we last meet at the end of the first game, where she was super evil and where we learned that she basically killed all the children in the orphanage. Anyway, she tells us that someone wants to kill us and he acts all surprised, even though he kinda knows this from the second game. Apart from that, she tells us to meet her in the freaking other world. Great! After another flashback and that thing, that is apparently banned from the first game, I would like to say that he had a glow up, but that might be an understatement. We finally meet her, and she tells us to meet Karen. Karen reveals that Vincent started the fire and hurts him badly. After that we switch to Emily, and Alessa instantly tells us that we have to save Vincent and kill 4 bloody monsters to get back to the normal world. Said and done, and we are back, man. But then we have to get a powerful relic to save our boy Vincent. But no problem for us. Said and done, and we are back in the dining room where Vincent is dying. To save him, we have to use the relic to kill ourselves. Yeah, after a bit of arguing, Emily is like, alright, and does it. Well, that was quick. Alessa also reveals that the monsters we are fighting were created by Karen from the spirit of the children she murdered 40 years ago. So Karen went from killing them to trying to save them to using them as monsters. It's wild how evil Karen got after the first game. Man, she could have also gone to therapy instead. But yeah, apparently we also took their spirits by killing them, so killing ourselves is our way to freedom. And somehow Vincent is saved by that as well. And that aren't even my words, that is the dialogue from Alessa. But that are not the only words from Alessa. I heard that she also said that a lot of you haven't subscribed yet, so please do so if you're enjoying this video. I'm sure she will greatly appreciate it, and I would as well. Thanks a lot. Now back to Vincent. As Vincent we get another memory again, where Vincent starts a fire because his dad continues to abuse him. So now we finally know what he did and why Karen is so mad. Back in the present, Alessa tells us to stop Karen because she is getting too powerful. So much that she can even spawn the enemies in the normal world, which is less ideal. After some gaming and flashbacks, we meet Karen again. For the last time. And like always, we kill her. Vincent is in a pretty bad shape as well, but even worse is that Alessa reveals that all this was just a trick by her. Because she needed every orphan dead, which she finally achieved. I also just wanted to mention that in the first game we are told that only 3 children survived the killing in the orphanage, but this is obviously bullshit because apart from Moon, Ben and Karen, there were now also Lucas, Emily and Vincent. But anyway, their death leads to the evil side of Alessa being now finally awake and ready to rumble. And that basically concludes the story. Originally I wanted to say now that I'm still not sure why Karen switched to her evil side after the first game, but after rethinking that, I believe that she probably died somehow after the events of the first game, or maybe she never really got out and all this was just an illusion made by Alessa. So yeah, honestly in terms of the story I'm pretty satisfied. As far as I'm aware, they didn't left anything major untouched. We know what happened and... Wait, now why the hell was Karen supposedly the one who killed everyone when Vincent was the one who started the fire? And why did Alessa tell Karen to visit Moon at the end of the first game when we never saw her again? Like, maybe I'm just confused right now and it's super obvious, but I have no idea what the hell is going on anymore. If somebody is smarter than me, feel free to comment and explain it to me. So yeah, to do that again, the story is fine, it's quite entertaining, but I think they overdid it with all the retconning to previous games and cliffhangers. It's possible that I'm the stupid one, but I kinda feel like they didn't really pay attention to the story of the previous games. Overall, it could have been much worse, and for the most parts I'm happy with what we got, but there are just small details like the ones I just mentioned that kinda destroy my happiness about the whole thing. The storytelling remains the same. It still sounded kinda like a fanfiction, but nothing too bad apart from that. The only thing that really struck me were the spelling mistakes at some parts of the games. Like seriously, what is that? You guys are making an official Silent Hill game, at least check your spelling before shipping the game. But now we are finally at the gameplay section, which is hopefully less confusing. Like I already said, the basic gameplay remains the same, so nothing completely shocking for anyone that has already played the other games, which actually surprised me a bit because of the change in developer. But that doesn't mean that nothing has changed. First off, because I always start with this, the backtracking was actually pretty alright and miles above the first game and even better than the second game as well. Maybe I just got used to it, but there was never a moment where I felt like I was just going back and forth. There was always a slightly different route with different rooms you have to go to. The only thing that kinda resembled the other games were two bathrooms that were the exact same, but at least on a different floor. So that's a pretty big thumbs up from my side.
Nice.
Out of habit, I have to talk about the combat next. But that is actually not a bad thing, because they improved that as well, so it makes sense to mention that now. They further improved the enemy variety. There was only one enemy type in the first game, 2 in the second, and now we got 3 enemy types plus an unique end boss. So an insane amount of 4 different types. And that is more than enough considering how short the game is. There are also more enemies in general and more weapons that use different ammo, are freely equipable and make different amounts of damage. And not only that, every enemy type is different as well. I don't want to spoil them, but some are stronger than others and have different attacks. And again, not only that, but they also changed the way the combat works. Previously you just had to aim somewhere on the enemy and shoot. Now you have to do the same, but the crosshair moves. But it's a lot faster and sometimes you get 2 crosshairs that overlap each other at some point and then you make extra damage when you push the attack button at the right time. At first I wasn't amazed by the combat changes, but it's actually a lot more interesting and fun now. So definitely a big thumbs up for that as well. But that's not the only thing they improved. In my review about the second game, I complained that the key items were very hard to see at certain parts, because it was often just a small detail at some object and you had to be very precise to get it. I never had that problem in this game. Every key item was easy to see and I never had the problem that I didn't saw it or that I wasn't exactly on it. So again, thumbs up from my side. But now I have something that will surprise you. That wasn't even the last thing they improved. In the second game, the puzzles and the weird use of some items left me quite frustrated. And it was actually one of my biggest dislikes about that game. Well, now that's not the case anymore. Although the puzzles are easier now and to be honest sometimes maybe even a bit too easy, they have a lot more variety, are a lot more fun and never left me wondering how I'm supposed to know some shit. There were just 2 instances where I wasn't fully happy with a puzzle. And that was the first one, because for some reason that left me confused. But I fully believe that I just missed something, because every other puzzle is a lot easier and makes sense. And I'd rather be delusional than be less happy about the improvements. The second one was an instant where you had a puzzle in the other world, but had to switch to the normal world to check an item description, and without context that may sound like it could make sense. But I thought that it was really stupid in that situation, but I don't want to spoil that either and it wasn't a big deal. So overall a big thumbs up for me as well. Of course it still isn't perfect, but then again, what is? Honestly, I'm just delighted that they improved all the things that were bad in the previous games, and I'm still amazed how that went so well considering they switched developers. But the game feels familiar while improving in all the right aspects. I was really happy about the presentation as well. The game looks really pretty with a nice art style. The overall detail is similar to the second game, but there's more variety, which to be fair isn't that hard because the first game was pretty much just brown and the second one was just a white hospital. The other world is not as gruesome as before though, but it actually looks different now instead of just a red filter like in the second game. And of course there's still plenty of blood and decently disgusting things, but just not as bad as the other games. But maybe that is also just my completely desensitized as speaking. Apart from that, there are ghosts and creepy faces everywhere that are kinda creepy, but I also thought that they were pretty damn funny, so even if I wasn't scared, I was at least entertained.
Nice.
They also kept the controls in different directions that you could look at, which kinda gave the second game a better and more immersive 3D effect, and that works just as well here again. Unfortunately, I wasn't as impressed by the dialogue, because like I already said, there were some spelling mistakes which is just really bad, and the story was kinda confusing. There were also some which I hated, and that felt really out of place, so the second game remains the king of dialogue. Well, and here's my conclusion. I will repeat myself, but obviously this part and in general the whole series are still not great and nothing you have to play because otherwise you aren't a real Silent Hill fan. But it was still a really cool journey and I'm really happy how much the game's improved with every entry. I'm still not completely happy with the story, but I can live with that. But overall I have to say that Silent Hill Mobile 3 was my favorite of the trilogy and I don't regret spending time on playing them. Actually, I'm very happy that I experienced all these games. I mean, I'm now one of like 3 people who played them, so there's that at least. Thanks a lot for watching. I will try to find out what weird horror game I will review next. And maybe you will see as well if you subscribe. Please also comment what you think of these games. But anyway, see you next time.